Spoiler alert, if you have not seen this movie and you have hopes of seeing it, do not listen to this. However, this is my short synopsis about the movie itself. This movie was definitely given Jordan Peele vibes. It was executive produced by the Obamas and some other executive producers as well, but I just found it interesting that they were two of the producers and the fact that they would have insight to things like this that happened in this movie. Now, you have some really big stars in this. You have Julia Roberts as Amanda, Ethan Hawke as Clay, and they have a daughter named Rose and a son named Archie in this movie. And you have Mahershala Ali playing the character of George, and he has a daughter named Ruth in this movie. So Amanda wants to get away, so she rents a home out in the what she calls the hamlets, away from the city, but then again, not too far. The music selection in this movie is kind of interesting. There are a lot of black artists. One in particular that they play a couple times, at least a couple times, is the group called Blackstreet. So while Amanda is actually at the store after they arrive at the house, she goes to the store to pick them up some groceries, and she sees a man stocking up on water and, supplies and things of that nature. Now, shortly after that, she takes the family out to the beach, and they're just sitting, enjoying the sun, reading a book and whatnot, and they see this ship, a oil ship that is quickly approaching the shore. And so that ship comes ashore, and everyone is, in shock about it and how big it is. And the name on that ship was the White Line. Now, I went and I looked up the White Line, and of course, one of the first things I saw was that there was a ship called the White Line that actually brought in the black indentured servants or slaves that came in 1619. So I found that interesting. But anyway, this was an oil rig or oil ship that actually washed up ashore, and it was called the White Line. There was a blackout in this city, and that's where George and his daughter went while the couple was actually renting their home. So when George and his daughter Ruth show up at the big house, after the blackout, because they wanted to be at home and feel somewhere safe outside of the city, Amanda doesn't believe that he actually owns the house. So there's a little bit of racial tension between the daughter Ruth, which is black, and Amanda, of whom is white, and they end up in the basement of their own home. So George knows a little bit more than he's letting on, but he doesn't want to alert everybody and get everybody upset and panicked. And he actually admits this over time. Now, there's a cyber attack, and it comes across the screen, and it's highlighted in different colors, and it seems like the highest impact was the northeast, of course, around the New York area, and then over on the West Coast, and there were a few scattered places in between. The most concentrated places was the northeast and the West Coast. So the daughter Rosie seems to be obsessed with the show Friends. Says she really cares about them, so she seems to be a little disassociated from reality. I don't know if it's because she's left to her own devices with everything that's going on in life, or she feels like her family doesn't really listen to her or are in tune with her, but she's really enthralled with the show Friends. And also in this movie, there's some weird behavior with the animals. They don't really seem afraid of humans because they're coming closer and closer, especially the deer. And there's some other instances where the flamingos are actually up in New York, and we know that's not their natural habitat. And the birds were doing weird patterns and things like that. But I also looked up the meaning of deer. And to Native tribes and Native Americans, deer means a messenger or some type of soft or very a nice spirit or a good spirit to have around. But the main one was a messenger. And of course, the deer were definitely bringing them a message in this movie because of everything that was going on. The fact that they were coming so close to humans and they had no fear. They just stood there and they would stare at them. Now, also, Clay goes into town and he gets lost, but he comes across a frantic lady that he doesn't help. And I remember that because I'm going to bring that up again. And also, while he's out there, flyers flying around in the air, some red flyers. He's going to take the flyers back to the house, and his son is going to recognize the writing on it, his son Archie, because he's going to recognize it from video games that he plays. Found that interesting. I also found it interesting that Rosie has on a shirt during this movie, a NASA shirt. So I'm sure there's something to be said about that as far as the research and the exploration goes. A lot of information being held there. Now, George, he goes to the neighbor's house and he sees that the glass is shattered and the floor is wet, and he's just trying to figure out what's going on. So the beach is right behind their house, and so he goes on the beach and he finds body parts, a crash plane, and while he's actually on the beach, another plane actually crashes right in front of him as he tries to run away and get away. Now, at this point, I think he starts to realize that his wife, of whom is on a business trip in Morocco, probably won't return home. So George finds an emergency phone also at his neighbor's house, but the phone doesn't work. So that alerts George also because the phone is a satellite phone and it should work. So since it's not, it lets him even further know or understand that there's some type of serious cyber attack going on. Now, George is a financial analyst and he sees the changes in the market a few months or at some time before all of this happens. So, that gives him a little bit of a heads up as well. In the meantime, Archie gets bitten while he's out in the woods with his sister, Rosie. And they also hear like some type of sonic waves or radiation sounds. And it's a very loud noise that cripples pretty much everyone while they're all just out in the woods and everybody's trying to look for the kids. And, it's just a little chaotic. Now, Amanda's family decides to leave the house and and Ruth is all for it because there's already some tension between the two of them, so they're like, we're going to leave, and Ruth is all for it because she's like, Dad, just let them go, because she knows what things could get like down in a situation like that where it's life or death and how people can be. I do want to mention something that I noticed, and that is the tattoo that Ruth has on her left shoulder. It's of a 96, and I looked up 96, and it's for new beginnings, humanitarianism, love, family, and things of that nature, and intuition also. So I found that interesting because she already felt the racial tension already coming from Amanda. So while they're leaving, they actually end up turning back because all of the Teslas, which are electric self-driving cars, have clogged all of the highways. So they return back to the house, and Amanda and George warm up to each other. They have some drinks, and he ends up, admitting to her that a colleague gave him a heads up of what's to come and to take care of himself. So then Amanda and George, they're tipsy and things almost cross the line, but they come to themselves. And that just shows you, like, in times of fear or, sometimes even in some movies, they've said when people know they're about to die or pass away, they start stripping everything off and trying to get it in one last time. So that gave me this feel because, George probably came to grips with the fact that his wife wasn't going to return home, or she was probably already dead. And then Amanda and her husband, Clay, seem to have been having some type of issues as well in their marriage. Now, Rosie goes to her brother for comfort during this time as well. But she gets told, look, you should probably find something else to care about besides that show Friends, because you're probably never going to get to see it again. So I don't think he should have told Rosie that, because I don't think he really understood how seriously she took that show. She felt very close to these people and out of touch with reality because she was so enthralled with this show. Now, something else about this is, like I said, that her sense of reality wasn't really intact, and I think it's because her family really didn't show her a whole lot of attention. Now, remember when I told you to remember the fact that when Clay went out, he came across a frantic woman that he ended up not helping? Well, when Archie falls sick, he ends up needing help. And so George takes him to his neighbor's house for help. The neighbor is kind of reluctant, and this person is played by Kevin Bacon, and the character's name is Danny. So Danny basically tries to talk George out of being so helpful, because look, in times like this, when you're trying to survive, it's about taking care of yourself and your family. So you need to stop being so, helpful. So Danny gave him that warning. And I think George listened, because when they all got back in the car, he actually asked Clay, "Look, I need to know that if things go down, that you actually have my back and we're in this together." So he did have his doubts about, total strangers being in his home and helping out total strangers, and he should. When Rosie goes missing, Amanda and Ruth go out looking for her, and they form some type of bond in that time period, which is interesting, and that goes to show you, when you're in a situation like that, life or death, end of the world times, or survival, that you're going to have to cling to people that you may not otherwise do. She has to remind Amanda again that, look, my mom is probably dead, and I'll probably never get to see her again while you're out here looking for your daughter. I know you're concerned about your daughter, but think about other people too, and what they may be going through. So at this time, they get surrounded by wild animals, and they end up having to help each other out. So in the meantime, Clay actually admits that he's not the most resourceful person and he's useless. And I found that very interesting, because I think a lot of people nowadays, we really don't think about, if things hit the fan, what would we do? A lot of us are ill prepared or not prepared at all. We don't even think about preparing. At the end of this movie, Rosie finds the bunker first. George knows about the bunker because his friend Danny tells him that one of the neighbors has built a bunker. Rosie finds the bunker first, but what's interesting is that before Rosie even thinks, she's not even thinking about her family. She's only thinking about what's in front of her, what she can do, what she can enjoy at that moment, instead of thinking long term about the survival of the family. So she's eating snacks and everything she's finding, and she goes downstairs, she finds a TV, and then she finds a set of collected DVDs, and of course, Friends. The Friends series is up on the shelf. So she starts watching Friends because she's just obsessed with that show. And so some of the things that I found interesting, that was one of them, of course, that child being so out of touch with reality, that watching that show and finding out what happens at the end with those people versus real life. She just wants to escape from real life, just be enthralled with that show. Another thing is actually racism, and the fact that racism actually plays and will play a very big role in end times, and people don't realize that. If it exists now, it's definitely going to exist then. When you're down to the nitty gritty and you're trying to survive, it's going to become, look, first it's going to be race, and then it's going to be neighbor, and then it's going to be, you're going to keep dwindling it down to, okay, now it's not about you anymore. It's not even about my neighbor anymore. It's just about my immediate family. And when push really, really, really comes to shove, it's just going to be, probably just caring more about your own life. Unless you're a parent, then, you probably consider your child more. But just something to think about. Also, helping others in end times. That's something that people don't think about. Like I said, when it comes down to survival times, you want to help each other and thrive at first. But, when stuff starts to really get hot and heavy, you're probably just going to be thinking about the nuclear family and yourself. Another thing that this movie really made us think about, because my husband and I watched it, is the fact that these things are inevitable. I mean, these things are bound to happen, because You can't just go around pissing off a lot of people and expect no retaliation at any time ever. No one and no thing can expect to stay at the top forever. Another thing is prepping. We have to get back to prepping. And I think sometimes we need these movies and we need reminders to remind us that, look, hey, stuff could hit the fan at any time. And it's better to be safe than sorry and prep and not need it than to not prep and need it. And another thing is to put family first and listening to kids, because Rosie, she found the bunker first. But what if George and nobody else actually knew about the bunker, and she found the bunker and she never went back to find her family? So I think listening to your kids and in tune with them and what's going on with them is really important, because that disconnection could have cost them their lives, especially if she didn't feel loved or heard. She might have thought, look, it's better for me just to be here by myself with my DVDs and my friends episodes than going to look for my family and not surviving in this bunker on all of the things that are, down here and prepped for us to be able to survive for a certain period of time. Another thing that I found interesting was the fact that the son Archie was playing a video game, and something that he saw in a video game actually came to fruition in real life because of the flyer that he saw. And he only recognized the flyer because it was actually in a video game. So again, a lot of these things that are in games and we think are harmless, and in these movies, and we think it's not serious. Someone and some people, the higher ups, they have information. They're privy to these things, and we need to be paying serious attention, just like the NASA shirt in this movie. Some of these companies and entities have tons and tons of information eons before we ever even know about it. Another tidbit and nugget I got out of this movie was to actually listen to nature. We've gotten so out of tune with the earth and out of tune with nature and the animals that even if they are blatantly and obviously in front of our face trying to warn us or show us something, we wouldn't even recognize us. We're so wrapped up in our phones and technology and the hustle and bustle, trying to achieve and strive for things and earn and gain money and things, that we're just out of touch with nature. And a lot of times, if we just pay attention, we can actually get the things that we need from nature. We can get the insight that we need from nature. Sometimes we're looking to a higher power or God, and he's actually speaking to us through the animals and through nature. So that's another thing that I found very interesting, and something that we need to get back to. That's just my synopsis of this movie and some of the takeaways that I got from it. I thought it was really interesting. Of course, the ending is, a little frothy, but a lot of these good movies do end like that. They end with the fact that they want to make you think. So I found it interesting. It is a must see. I did recommend the movie to quite a few people because I thought it was interesting, and my husband loved it. We stayed up. I actually dreamt about this movie that same night after I saw it, because it had me thinking about all the things that we've talked about doing even before we saw it, all the things that we are still talking about, all the things we want to do and we need to do to start preparing. The Most High is going to do what he wants to do, and everything has its end, but we should still be prepared as much as we can. Just sit around like sitting ducks. We still have to do our part. So I want to thank you all for watching and listening, and you be blessed.